Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about a camera that does a little more, but also a lot less than any other camera that I have. This camera is unique. It's not a rangefinder, it's not an SLR. It uses zone focusing, but it gives you no readouts on feet or meters. It also only has 2 shutter speeds, as well as only 2 apertures. The camera I'm talking about is the Holga, particularly this one, the CFN 120. Within the film community, the Holga seems to take a lot of flack. It gets kind of shit on a lot. People don't seem to like it too much, and they think it's probably the worst camera ever made. Truth be told, that honor goes to the Olympus XA2, the Mustang II of cameras. All jokes aside, the Holga isn't a clinical camera, and that's the point. The Holga is a toy camera. The body is plastic, the lens is plastic, it feels cheap, you could probably throw it off a building and not really be too concerned about it. Then again, what film you have loaded into it might be worth more than the camera at this point. But the Holga is special. What it lacks in prestige and pedigree, it makes up in very interesting and unique imagery. What you get with a soft plastic lens is chromatic aberration, softness, lens flares, vignetting, things you're probably not looking for in any of your imagery. That being said, all these imperfections lead to almost a perfect image in my opinion. These images aren't supposed to be good. That's what makes them great. The Holga is so unique in this territory that almost every film YouTube channel has done a video on it. It's got a cult appeal. So for a camera made of plastic known for light leaks, can you do serious work on it? I think the answer is yes. And to prove that to you, I took a trip down to the Washington and Oregon coast. I was feeling like I had to get back on that Holga-shaped horse and start shooting again. The first stop on this trip though was Cape Disappointment, which is the most southwest point of Washington. It was here that I loaded some Ilford Delta 100 up and started shooting away. As you can tell from these first 2 photos, I accidentally left the camera in bulb mode. The Holga only has 2 shutter functions, one being B for bulb and the other one being N, which is about 1/60th of a second. And unfortunately with these first 2 photos, I had left the camera in bulb, but I actually think they're kind of fun. They kind of give this spooky kind of like otherworldliness, like very kind of horror sci-fi look. Luckily, I only shot 2 photos in bulb mode, and I was smart enough to check my camera settings after firing 2 photos to make sure that I was shooting an N. From here on out, we just kind of explored this little park here at Cape Disappointment and kind of wandered all the way over to this lighthouse, and that was about it. We just kind of enjoyed our first stop on our little vacation here. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this trip. I actually have another video coming out hopefully shortly in the future about this trip. So as for now, we're just going to keep on moving along and keep talking about the Holga. Later that night though, I couldn't sleep even though it had been a long day of hiking and exploring and going around coastal Washington and Oregon. I was pretty restless to say, so I got up in the middle of the night and did some long exposures on the Holga. Again, the Holga has a bulb mode, but it doesn't actually have a plug-in for a shutter cable, so you actually have to hold the shutter down manually with your hand to make sure you're getting the exposure. Sometimes I get pretty good at doing this. I've done quite a few long exposures owning my Holga, and I kind of enjoy doing it. Some people say you're kind of standing there looking like a jackass, but the results pay off. Unfortunately, I was pretty tired, so they weren't the sharpest photos I've taken, nor were they the best composition. The night progressed, and I actually switched out the Holga for another camera, and again, we'll talk about that in a later video. But let's just say I went to bed, and the next day we ran off to Cannon Beach. We made it down to Cannon Beach in the mid-afternoon, and at this point I finished up the Ilford Delta 100. Wanting to switch it up, I decided to bring out some Cinestill 400D. I'm still going through my initial allotment of 400D that I bought all the way back in the pre-order almost a year ago, so it's nice to have been like shooting this and like kind of really experimenting with different cameras and in different regions to shoot this film. I was one of the people who didn't really like 400D when I first started shooting it, but as I've continued to shoot 400D, I really have learned to love it. It's definitely more on that brown side, but like I think there's some really good contrast in this film. After a little bit of exploring of Haystack Rock and just Cannon Beach in general, me and Claire worked our way back to Seaside, Oregon, where we were staying. At this point, I fired off the last photo, but I realized we were getting quite a nice golden hour, so I ran into the house, grabbed a roll of Kodak Gold 200, and I loaded up into the Holga, and me and Claire ran off towards the beach. These were probably my favorite shots I took all weekend. Kodak Gold has really become one of my favorite film stocks since it's been released. Like, it's up there with Lomo 800 and Kodak's Tri-X. Like, I really do love Kodak Gold. I think it's my go-to color film right now for medium format. So this sunset, we were actually quite lucky because, again, we're in the Pacific Northwest and it's winter time, so usually you just get gray and rain and clouds, but we actually got a full-on sunset and it was beautiful. It was absolutely stunning. I think Kodak Gold really did justice with the scenes. I really couldn't be happier with any other film stock that I could have picked for this kind of setting. I honestly shot the whole roll before the sun even set because I was just having so much fun shooting this. I probably should have brought 2 rolls, but I was just kind of enjoying the moment. So at this point, there's going to be no more photos from the Oregon coast because I didn't take any more with the Holga. And from here, we're moving to Tacoma. Feeling like I hadn't shot enough and I just was actually really enjoying shooting my Holga, I decided to load up some Ilford Delta 3200 that I had laying around. I've had this roll for longer than I can remember and I thought it was about time I shot it. A neat thing I've learned in the Holga community is you can take a 46 to 49mm step-up ring and you can actually screw it into the front of these Holga cameras, and by doing so you can actually add your own filters to your Holga. You're kind of like embedding it in there. It's actually not a screw mount. You're literally just twisting it into the plastic. But with that being said, you're able to add different filters and such. Like I've used Pro Mist in the past, but again, I was shooting Ilford Delta 3200. I thought it'd be fun to shoot it with a red filter. So we were wandering Point Defiance and we kind of went down to Owens Beach and we were kind of walking the waterfront. It was a frigid cold day and it was actually kind of snowing on and off at this point. So we were kind of walking briskly to keep our heat up and I was trying to just look for any compositions that looked good. And I found a few that I really liked, but mostly I was just trying to stay warm. It was way too cold and windy. I quickly shot this roll and some of the photos I loved, some of the photos I didn't think turned out too great, but it was great to experiment with that red filter. At this point, I still wasn't feeling satisfied with my Holga hunger. I wanted to shoot some more. At this point, I wanted to attempt what I've done only once before on the Holga, and I thought I was better equipped and had better knowledge to help me out try this again. Over the summer, I attempted to do trichrome infrared photography on a Holga, and I only walked away with one photo because I screwed up a bunch. I like to do this in 35 and medium format, but I thought it'd be fun to try to do on the Holga again. When it comes to trichroming, you really have to nail your exposures for an accurate image result, so yeah, these aren't accurate. One of the main issues I had with this was actually not from the camera, it was actually my film. When I was doing my infrared video, the first one on this channel, I think I left this roll in my trunk and it got a little too heated because when I took it to the lab, my lab tech told me that there was a lot of static on the film and the paper kind of stuck to the back of it. So I think I might have cooked this film a little bit in my car last summer and I totally forgot about it. So this roll had a lot of noise, a lot of grain, a couple different dark damage spots and stuff like that. But then again, when you're shooting on a Holga, like, it's going to be imperfect anyways. So I think it just kind of adds to the mood. So it's at this point I want to give a shout out to Anna Starr, better known as Anna S Snapshots on Instagram. As you probably know, Anna is a well-known photographer that uses a Holga camera based up here in the Pacific Northwest. Honestly, you're probably more familiar with her work than you are mine. That's how well-known she is. With that being said though, Anna's done something really nice for the community. She has her own zine called Plastic Perspective, and the neat thing is I've been in issue 1, 2, and 3, and she's currently having open call for issue 4. I always feel lucky when I get to be included in Plastic Perspective because as someone who wants to make their own zine and hasn't really put any effort or work into it, it's nice to be able to help contribute into someone else's zine. Like, I always think it's so cool when people do an open call or like a call for artists to add to their zine and stuff like that. It really brings the community together, and I think Anna's really successful at that with the Plastic Perspective series. Again, this camera has a cult following and some people don't like it, but I think they're wrong. This camera is a dream machine. Suffering from the vignetting, chromatic aberration, lens flares, you name it, it's got it. Light leaks, of course, but it kind of gives your images this ethereal look. There's nothing that can really replicate the Holga look. It's so unique. If you love this look, you should definitely pick up Plastic Perspective. It's filled with multiple artists all using the same tool and just showcasing the wide variety and skill and just basically creativity that a whole bunch of different artists have using one style of camera. And if this is a camera you love and this is a camera you shoot often, I recommend that you contribute to issue 4. There should be about several days left on the open call, but if not this next issue, hopefully future issues. And if you don't own a Holga, all I have to say is this: sell your M6 and buy a good camera. Have this in the background too. Oops.